Daniel Mercer received the letter on a Tuesday morning. It arrived with no return address. The envelope was thick, the paper brittle, like it had been sitting somewhere for decades. The stamp was faded enough that Daniel couldn't even read the date. He almost threw it away, but something about it felt deliberate. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The ink looked old, written with a fountain pen in slow, careful strokes. Mr. Daniel Mercer, you are the final living heir of the Hawthorne Estate located on Hollow Creek Road. The property has remained unoccupied since the disappearance of the Hawthorne family in 1987. The estate and all possessions within it now legally belong to you. You are advised to inspect the property. Daniel stared at the page. Hawthorne Estate? He had never heard that name in his life. His parents were dead, his grandparents too. No cousins, no aunts, no family left. And yet somehow he had inherited an entire estate. 3 days later, curiosity won, and Daniel started driving north.
The drive took nearly 7 hours. As Daniel moved deeper into the mountains, the towns grew smaller. Gas stations disappeared. Phone service vanished. The forest thickened until the trees formed walls on both sides of the road. Eventually, his GPS stopped working completely. But the directions from the letter were simple. Hollow Creek Road. Daniel almost missed it. The sign was rusted and bent sideways, half swallowed by vines. The road itself looked abandoned. Cracked asphalt, weeds growing through it. But the tire tracks suggested someone had driven here before, recently. That thought unsettled him, because according to the letter, the estate had been empty for 37 years. Daniel drove slowly. The deeper he went, the darker the forest became. Branches leaned over the road like skeletal fingers. The sky above disappeared completely. Then the road curved around a hill, and Daniel saw it. The house.
The Hawthorne Estate stood at the top of a low hill beyond a tall iron gate. The house was enormous. 3 stories tall, Victorian architecture, dark wood siding that had faded almost black with age. Tall, narrow windows stared down at him like watchful eyes. The structure looked ancient, but not abandoned. The windows weren't broken, the roof wasn't collapsed, and the front porch looked strangely clean, like someone had taken care of it. Daniel stepped out of the car. The air felt colder near the house, much colder than the forest below. Wind whispered through the trees. For a brief moment, Daniel had the distinct feeling someone was standing behind one of the upstairs windows, watching him. But when he looked again, nothing moved.
The front door opened easily, too easily. The hinges didn't creak. Inside, the house smelled like dust and old wood, but there was something else too. A faint metallic smell, like old coins or dried blood. The entrance hall was massive. A chandelier hung above a long staircase. Portraits covered the walls. Every painting showed members of the Hawthorne family, men in black suits, women in elegant dresses, children standing stiffly beside them. But something about the portraits felt wrong. The eyes, they looked too real, too aware. Daniel tried to ignore it. He explored the house for hours. Living rooms, guest bedrooms, a massive dining hall, a library filled with ancient books, and everywhere, mirrors. Large mirrors, wall mirrors, standing mirrors, mirrors inside mirrors. Every hallway had them, every room. Some were antique, others looked newer, but they all faced inward, toward the center of the house,
Daniel didn't understand why, but the arrangement made him uncomfortable. It felt like the house was watching itself.
Night fell quickly. Without electricity, the house plunged into darkness. Daniel lit a lantern and chose a guest room near the stairs. The silence inside the estate felt unnatural, not peaceful, not calm, heavy, like something was pressing against the air. Daniel eventually fell asleep. At 1:17 a.m., he woke suddenly. A sound had pulled him from sleep. Knocking, slow, rhythmic, knock, knock, knock. Daniel sat up. The sound wasn't coming from the door. It came from the wall beside his bed. He held his breath. The knocking came again. Knock, knock, knock. Then silence. Daniel leaned closer to the wall. Nothing. No pipes, no animals, just wood. He lay back down, but just as he closed his eyes, he heard something else. A whisper, right next to his ear. A voice barely louder than breath. It said only one word. Daniel. The next morning, Daniel tried to convince himself he imagined everything. Old houses make noise. Wind moves through the walls. But something still felt wrong. While walking through the hallway, Daniel stopped in front of a mirror. It was tall and narrow. The frame was carved with strange symbols he didn't recognize. He moved his hand. His reflection moved too, but a fraction of a second slower. Daniel froze. His reflection froze. He leaned forward. The reflection leaned forward. Half a second later, Daniel stepped back slowly. Something inside his chest tightened. He turned away from the mirror. Behind him, the reflection didn't move. Later that afternoon, Daniel discovered a hidden room behind the library shelves. Inside was a small writing desk and a journal. The leather cover was cracked with age. The name inside read, Eleanor Hawthorne, 1902. The early pages were normal. Daily life, town events, family dinners. But the tone slowly changed. Daniel read the entries carefully. March 14. Father says the house has strange acoustics. Sometimes I hear knocking in the walls. April 2. Mother says the mirrors have been moved again. None of the servants admit doing it. April 17. I saw someone behind me in the hallway mirror. When I turned around, no one was there. The handwriting became shaky. May 9. The reflections are wrong. They don't move like we do. May 16. Something is inside the mirrors. They are watching us. The final entry was barely readable. The ink had been pressed so hard it tore the paper. June 1. They are trying to come through. Father says the mirrors must stay facing inward. It traps them. If the mirrors move, God help whoever lives here. That night, the footsteps started. Slow. Dragging. Somewhere upstairs. Daniel grabbed the lantern and stepped into the hallway. The sound stopped instantly. The hallway was empty, but the mirror at the end of the corridor caught his eye. Someone stood behind him. A tall figure. Too thin. Daniel spun around. Nothing. Heart racing, he turned back toward the mirror. The figure was still there, standing behind his reflection. Its head slowly lifted. Its face had no eyes, no nose, no mouth, just smooth gray skin stretched tight over bone. Then the skin split open. A mouth tore across the face, wide, unnatural, smiling. The lantern suddenly went out, and the whispering began. Morning never felt so terrifying, because Daniel noticed something impossible. The mirrors had moved. Every mirror in the house now faced the main hallway, perfectly aligned, like an audience, watching. Daniel tried to leave, but his car wouldn't start. The battery was completely dead. The road beyond the gate looked wrong, longer. The forest seemed thicker than before, almost like the house had moved deeper into it overnight. When Daniel returned inside, the knocking began again. But this time, it came from every wall. Knock, knock, knock. Then the whispers started. Hundreds of voices, all speaking at once, all saying the same thing. Look at us. Daniel opened Eleanor's journal again. One final page had been folded shut. Inside was a warning. The house was built around the mirrors, not the other way around. The mirrors are doors. They show us, but they also see us. And if someone looks long enough, something on the other side begins to learn how to wear their face. That night, every mirror in the house fogged over. Shapes pressed against the glass. Hands, faces, bodies, trying to force their way through. Daniel ran through the house smashing mirrors. Glass shattered everywhere, but behind every broken mirror, there was another one, and another, and another. Then Daniel saw the largest mirror in the main hallway. Inside it, his reflection stood still. But Daniel wasn't standing still. The reflection slowly smiled. Then it stepped forward and pressed its hand against the glass from the other side. Daniel Mercer disappeared that night. The Hawthorne Estate still stands in the northern forest. Most people never find Hollow Creek Road. Those who do rarely stay long. But sometimes travelers report strange things. Knocking inside the walls, mirrors that move during the night, and reflections that don't move quite right. Some claim that if you stare long enough, you might see a man standing behind you in the mirror. A man with terrified eyes, trying to warn you, trying to scream, but the glass won't let the sound out, because the thing wearing his face is already outside the mirror, and it's smiling, waiting for the next person to look.